The skies above Varix 9 were covered with soft purple clouds, glowing faintly as ships arrived from every corner of the galaxy. Today was the first day of the Intergalactic Expo, a grand event held once every 5 years. Scientists, engineers, traders, and leaders came together to display the most advanced technologies, weapons, and living specimens. Raylan, a human technician from Earth, had never been to such a place before. He worked on small cargo ships, fixing navigation systems and power cores. This trip was supposed to be a short repair job. But when his captain offered him a free pass to the expo, he couldn't say no. How could he? This was where the future was shown to the universe. As Raylan walked through the towering halls of shining glass and metal, he saw things he had never imagined: robots the size of insects, cleaning entire walls, floating food stalls that served meals based on your DNA, and alien performers using sound to shape light. He was amazed, but as he kept walking, he noticed a corridor marked for private delegates only. Guards stood by it, but they didn't seem alert. Raylan's curiosity got the better of him. Slipping into a service path, he quietly moved around the edge of the guards and entered the private section. The air was different, here cold, controlled, quiet. No music, no excitement. Just whispers and soft humming from machines. Inside were chambers lined with thick, transparent walls. And in them, not machines, but living beings, legions of different species, each one locked in place, displayed like trophies. Some were resting, some looked tired. Some refused to open their eyes. Raylan felt uncomfortable. This wasn't entertainment or education. This was a Zuno, worse. This was like a slave market, but more polished, more hidden. He kept walking, drawn by something. Then he saw her. She sat alone in a small display chamber. Her skin was pale blue with a soft purplish shade, smooth and almost glowing under the low light. Her eyes were large and gentle, and small elf-like ears peeked through her silver-white hair. She wore a simple cloth-wrapped knot armor, not decoration. Round her ankles and wrists were light metal cuffs connected to a pulse device. Unlike the others, she was not lying down or angry. She just sat quietly, her hands folded on her lap. Her expression was calm, but there was deep sadness in her eyes. Raylan stood still. He didn't know why he stopped. There was something peaceful and mysterious about her. She didn't even look at him at first. Then, suddenly, she turned her head. Their eyes met. Raylan felt a strange jolt inside his chest. Not fear, not pain, just understanding. Like she could see who he really was. And then her lips moved. He blinked. She whispered, "Please, take me home." It was soft, almost silent. But Raylan heard it clear as a voice in his mind. He looked around. No one else noticed. The guards weren't watching. The few guests nearby were busy with their own twisted curiosity. He stepped closer to the glass. "You can speak?" he asked, just above a whisper. She didn't answer. But her eyes showed something hope. Raylan quickly looked at the small panel beside her display. A list of numbers and text in alien languages scrolled down. One line caught his eye. Species. El Yari empath, extremely rare, dangerous if unchained, dangerous. She didn't look dangerous. She looked tired, weak, alone. He pressed his palm on the glass and she leaned slightly forward. "I'm Raylan," he said. "What's your name?" For a moment she didn't reply. Then she touched her hand to her chest and whispered again. "Elia." Raylan felt her name echo in his mind like it carried a gentle warmth. Before he could say anything else, he heard footsteps. 2 tall guards walked toward him, talking in a foreign tongue. "Ah!" He stepped back quickly and nodded like a tourist. One of the guards laughed and said, "Careful, human. That one plays tricks with your thoughts. She's not for sale. It's just for show." Raylan forced a smile and walked away slowly, as soon as he was out of sight. He leaned against a wall, his mind racing. He had seen many things in space. Machines that could talk. Creatures that could survive without air. But never someone like her. Never someone who could speak into his heart with just a look. and certainly not someone chained up like an object. She was asking him for help. But what could he do? He was just a ship technician, not a soldier, not a hero. Still, something inside him had already changed. That night, back on his small ship, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. He heard her voice. Please, take me home. He didn't know where her home was. He didn't know how powerful her captors were, but he knew one thing. He had to go back. Raylan sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the dark metal floor of his ship. The small room around him buzzed softly with power, but he wasn't hearing it anymore. All he could hear was her voice inside his head. Please, take me home. The soft voice had become a storm in his mind. Elia, that was her name. She had whispered it with such honesty, such quiet hope. Now, it refused to leave him alone. He turned on his data tablet and searched the expo records. The private chambers weren't listed in the official brochure, but after digging through back channels and archived expo blueprints, he found a name: Living Intelligence Showcase, Secure Sector 7. Raylan leaned back and sighed. He wasn't important, he wasn't rich, but he knew how systems worked. He'd been fixing ships for years. He'd bypassed airlocks, hacked faulty doors, and once even rerouted a warship's engine startup. Maybe it was time to use those skills for something more. The next day, he returned to the expo button, not through the front door. Raylan entered through the back side of the power maintenance tunnel, a route he'd discovered during his digging. Wearing a worker's vest and carrying a basic toolkit, he passed by other technicians without suspicion. Once inside the restricted area, he walked quickly but carefully, acting like he belonged there. He knew the guard rotation now. He had watched their shifts last night from a security camera panel at a local diner. Everything was timing. When he reached Elia's chamber, he saw her again sitting the same way. Quiet, still, eyes lowered. She looked even weaker today. Raylan gently tapped the glass. She opened her eyes slowly and looked at him. The sadness in her eyes was still there, but this time it was joined by a flicker of something else: recognition. You remember me? He whispered. She nodded once, very softly. Raylan looked at the control panel again. It had several alien symbols, but some of them he could understand now. The glowing red line across the display meant the chain restraints were active. The symbols next to it were warnings. Suddenly, Elia moved closer to the glass. She placed her hand flat on it. Raylan, unsure but trusting, placed his own hand opposite hers. A strange warmth filled his chest. It was gentle, like someone wrapping a blanket around his thoughts. He heard her voice again, but not through his ears, through his mind. You're kind. You listen. That's rare. Raylan didn't pull away, whispered. What are they doing to you? She didn't speak, but the feeling he got was strong pain, fear, loneliness. Raylan felt his heart tighten. I'll get you out, he said without thinking. Elia blinked slowly. Her lips moved. Thank you. But then she pulled her hand back and gestured slightly toward the sidewall cameras. There were watchers. She mouthed the word, tonight. Raylan understood. If he acted now, he would only fail. But at night, there might be a chance. Back on his ship, Raylan started planning. He downloaded a map of the power grid, studied the restraint device used on her cuffs, and began preparing a small gadget that could disrupt the pulse. Frequency for about 30 seconds, just enough to unlock the locks if he timed it right. He worked all afternoon and evening, hands shaking but focused. That night, under the cover of darkness, he returned, wearing a black vest and moving through the unused cargo tunnel. He reached the chamber again. This time, the area was mostly empty. Just one patrolling drone and a guard on break nearby. Raylan activated the tool. It hummed faintly. He moved to the control panel, fingers steady now. Placed the device over the restraint interface. A quiet pulse flickered blue. Inside, Elia watched him, still calm but with her eyes locked onto his. The device blinked green. Ellen hit the unlock switch. There was a soft hiss. The cuffs on Elia's wrists clicked open as the chains on her ankles fell. With a light clink, her body jolted slightly as energy flowed back into her. She stood slowly, unsteady. Raylan's eyes widened. You okay? She nodded. But then a red light flashed above the door. The system had detected unauthorized access. Raylan shouted, "Run!" The chamber door opened automatically. Laya stepped out for the first time in what must have been years. Together, they ran. Alarms blared through the hallway. Red lights flashed. Footsteps echoed behind them. Raylan led her down the tunnel through a maintenance hatch he had opened earlier. He knew where to go. His ship was close, and if they made it outside, they could escape. But guards were already moving in. They turned a corner and ran right into a security drone. Raylan pulled a shock rod from his belt and fired at the drone. Sparks flew as it dropped to the ground. They ran again. Behind them, voices shouted in alien languages. Ahead, the shipyard lights came into view. Raylan turned to Alaya. Can you make it? It's not far. She breathed heavily and nodded. Strength was returning, but not fully. Raylan grabbed her hand and pulled her forward, just as the ship's ramp lowered. More drones entered the area. Blaster warnings echoed. Raylan and Alaya ran up the ramp, and the ship's door sealed behind them. Raylan rushed to the pilot's seat and punched in the exit codes. The ship lifted, shook under fire, but escaped into the night sky. They were out. Safe for now. The stars stretched out like silver dust as Raylan's ship jumped into hyperspace. He sat in the pilot's seat, breathing hard, sweat rolling down his back. Beside him, Alaya sat quietly, holding onto the armrest. Her skin was still pale, but she looked a little stronger now. Raylan looked at her and gave a small smile. We made it. Alaya nodded gently. She tried to smile back, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was free, yes, but far from safe. Raylan opened the ship's star map. We can't go back to any known ports. They'll be looking for us. He scanned through nearby systems and pointed at a blinking mark. There's a moon here. No colonies, no patrols, just empty ruins from the old wars. We'll rest there. Hide until I figure out what to do. Alaya touched his arm lightly. Raylan turned to her and through her soft voice in his mind, she said, Thank you. You risked everything. He smiled faintly. I didn't plan to. I couldn't leave. You there? Alaya looked at him deeply, then turned her eyes back to the window, staring at the stars. She had been in chains for so long, her freedom felt unreal. Hours later, the ship landed on a gray, silent moon. Cracked land stretched in every direction, and broken towers stood like skeletons from a forgotten time. Raylan guided the ship into a large, empty structure that looked like an old docking bay. He powered down the engines and looked around. No signals, no signs of life. We're alone. Alaya stepped out carefully, her bare feet touching the cold metal floor. She walked slowly, almost like a ghost. Raylan watched her, then opened a side cabinet, pulled out a blanket and a food pack. You need to eat and rest. She took the blanket and sat down on a smooth rock. She didn't open the food right. Away. Her eyes were on the ruins. Raylan sat across from her. You said your name's Alaya? Where are you from? She looked at him. Then her voice filled his mind again. My world was called Silurian. It was green, peaceful. My people, the Elyari, lived by feeling. We shared thoughts, emotions, memories. We never built weapons. Raylan leaned forward. What happened? She lowered her eyes. Others feared us, said we were dangerous, believed we could control minds. But we only listen, we don't force. There was pain in her voice now. Heavy silence followed. One day ships came. They took some of us. The rest were scattered. I don't know who's left anymore. Raylan felt anger rise in his chest. That's not right. None of it. Alaya gave a faint nod. Fear makes people cruel. Raylan didn't reply, simply opened the food pack and handed it to her. Eat something. I'll check the systems. As Alaya quietly began to eat, Raylan returned to the ship's console. He searched communication networks, trying to find any news. The Expo incident was already being talked about. The security breach, a missing alien, an unknown human ship escaping. The bounty for capture was high. Raylan shut the screen and leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "We'll need help," he whispered to himself. That night, as the moon's cold winds blew outside the broken walls, Raylan set up a small heater. Elia rested near it, her body wrapped in the blanket. Raylan sat nearby, awake, thinking. Suddenly Elia opened her eyes. "Are you afraid?" she asked, not with her mouth, but directly in his mind. Raylan looked at her a little. "I didn't plan for this, but I don't regret it." Elia's expression softened. "You're kind. Most wouldn't have stopped or listened." He shrugged. "Maybe I just got lucky to meet you." She smiled this time, a real one. Raylan stood and walked to the edge of the broken hangar, staring up at the stars. Elia came beside him. The wind blew her silver hair across her face. She looked at him quietly, then spoke again through thought. "You don't have to carry this alone. I can help." Raylan turned to her. "You're still weak." She nodded. "Psst, but my strength is returning." Slowly the chains held back more than my body. They blocked my mind. I'm beginning to feel again. Raylan raised an eyebrow. "Feel what?" She stepped closer, placing 2 fingers lightly against his temple. Raylan gasped. In a flash, he saw a green world, trees with crystal leaves, children laughing, music that sounded like rain, then fire, screaming, running, chains, then ... Her sitting in the glass chamber, looking at him, and finally ... Her whisper, "Double quotes, please." "Take me home." Raylan blinked and stepped back, breathing hard. "I saw everything," he whispered. Elia nodded.
Ow.
"Now you understand." He looked at her differently now, not just as someone needing help, but someone who had lost everything and still stood tall. "Then we find your home," he said. "Or what's left of it." Elia took his hand. Her touch was soft, warm. **** home is not a place, she whispered in his mind. "It's the one who chooses to stand with you." Raylan stared into the sky. They had no map, no allies, no plan, but they had each other, and sometimes that was enough to begin. The old ruins on the moon were quiet, but Raylan knew it wouldn't last. The escape from the expo had made noise across nearby systems. Sooner or later, someone would find their trail. Inside the shelter of the broken docking bay, Raylan worked on repairing the ship's damage. The engine had taken a few hits during their escape. If they needed to jump again, it had to be ready. Elia watched him from a corner of the room. She was sitting on a low stone bench, her silver-white hair falling gently over her shoulder. Pale blue skin glowed faintly under the weak lights Raylan had set up. She was stronger now. Each day she moved with more energy, and the sadness in her eyes slowly faded. Still she spoke little. Her voice in his mind was gentle, but always careful. It's like she didn't want to cause pain again. As Raylan adjusted the ship's panel, he said, "I picked up a signal earlier. Patrol passed nearby. Didn't stop, but they're getting closer." Elia looked toward the entrance. "They're searching. I can feel the attention turning this way." Raylan nodded. "Then we need to move soon." But first he paused and looked at her seriously. "Where should we go, Elia? I'll take you. Anywhere. Just say it." She stood and walked toward him. "I don't know where my people are, if any are still alive. But there may be someone who can help us." Raylan leaned forward. "Who?" "A woman named Araya. She was a scholar, a protector of knowledge. She worked with the El Yari long ago, before the fear started. She lives on a hidden station near the edge of neutral space." Raylan opened the star map again. "Can you find it?" Elia closed her eyes for a moment, then pointed gently. "There, between the Lurian Belt and the Red Mist Zone. The station's name is Kavaris Arc." Raylan tapped the screen. "All right, if she's our best chance, then that's where we go." Just then, the ship's proximity alert blinked. A ship had entered the moon's orbit. Raylan rushed to the scanner. Small vessel, fast. No beacon. It's not a patrol, it's a tracker. Elia's eyes narrowed. They followed the signal. From our last jump, Raylan grabbed his toolkit. "I need 5 more minutes to get this ship flying. Can you do anything to slow them down?" Elia nodded quietly. She stepped outside into the open area and stood near the broken archway. She closed her eyes, raised her hand, and the air around her shimmered. Inside the ship, Raylan watched through the screen. He saw her shape blur, like heat waves rising from stone. Then the enemy ship landed. A hatch opened. 2 figures stepped out, one tall and armored, the other scanning the area with a metal staff. Raylan's heart pounded. LOI. Didn't move. The armored figure walked closer. She's here. I can feel her presence. But then, the scanner in the second figure's hand glitched. Something's wrong, he muttered. It's all blank. The taller one growled. It's her. She's hiding us from the sensors, Raylan understood. Now Elia was using her empathic abilities to bend the attention around them. The enemies could not lock onto her, or the ship clearly. But she couldn't do it forever. Raylan rushed to the engine bay. Wires sparked, tools clicked. His hands moved fast. Outside, Elia stood firm, sweat forming on her forehead. The armored figure grew frustrated. We're wasting time. Let's destroy the whole site. Flush her out. He raised his weapon. Raylan yelled from inside the ship. Now Elia. Shh. He opened her eyes and ran toward the ship. The enemies fired, but their aim was off. The weapon. Blast hit a wall instead, shaking the ground. Raylan hit the launch button. The ship's engine roared back to life. The ramp closed as Elia leapt in. The vessel lifted just as another blast scorched the ground beneath it. They rose quickly, speeding through the sky, leaving behind fire and smoke. Raylan didn't speak for a moment. He was too focused on flying. Elia sat down, breathing hard. Her strength was drained again, but she managed to whisper into his mind, "Thank you. It's for trusting me." Raylan looked over his shoulder. "You just saved both of us. Again." After they escaped the moon's gravity, Raylan activated the star jump. Coordinates locked. Kavaris Arc Station. The ship vanished into hyperspace. Sometime later, as they floated in safe space, Raylan checked their systems. "We're about 2 days from the station." He turned to Elia, who sat silently across from him. "You okay?" he asked. She gave a slow nod. "I used too much energy, but I'll recover. Being near you helps. Your thoughts are clear. You don't hide fear behind." Hate. Raylan raised an eyebrow. "That's a strange compliment." Elia smiled gently. "It means your mind is safe to be near." "That's rare." He didn't reply at first. Then he said softly, "You were chained and treated like a tool, and still you're kind." Elia looked out the window. "'Cause if I stop being kind, then they win, and I don't want to become what they fear." Raylan understood. He nodded slowly. They both looked at the stars ahead. There was still danger. But for the first time in a long while, Elia had a chance, and Raylan had a reason. The stars moved slowly outside the ship as Raylan guided them toward the Uran Divide. It was a dark region, filled with broken moons and thick asteroid clouds. Few traveled this way. Most maps marked it with warnings: restricted space, unstable, zone. But Elia wasn't afraid. She stood behind Raylan, her soft blue skin glowing in the dim cabin light. Her silver-white hair moved gently as the ship rumbled. Her eyes stared ahead, sharp and focused. "They're down there," she whispered, voice low but sure. Raylan nodded. "We'll get them out, just like I got you." Elia placed her hand on his shoulder. "You didn't just save me. You reminded me that kindness still exists." Raylan looked at her. "And you reminded me what's worth fighting for." The ship slowed as it reached the edge of the colony's airspace. A gray planet below spun slowly. The colony was hidden in a canyon, protected by mountains and shadows. Raylan switched off all signals, stealth mode activated. "Let's not get caught before we even land." He descended carefully, slipping past old defense turrets that still hummed with half power. Elia closed her eyes, feeling for the mines below. "They're afraid, silent, but I can still feel them." The ship touched down behind a rocky slope. Raylan grabbed his toolkit and a small energy disruptor. Elia wrapped her cloak tightly and followed him into the cold, thin air. They crept through the broken metal doors of the colony. The halls inside were quiet, too quiet. Cracks ran through the walls, lights flickered, machines buzzed, but no one spoke. Suddenly, Elia raised her hand. "Wait." Raylan froze. From the next corridor, 2 guards walked past. Not soldiers, just hired workers with scanners and electric batons. They didn't notice Raylan or Elia, who hid in the shadows. When the way was clear, they moved again. Deeper. Into the base, they found a locked chamber. Elia stepped forward and touched the wall. Her eyes closed. They're inside. 5. Alyari. Tired, weakened, but alive. Vaughn knelt by the control panel. Give me 30 seconds. Sparks flew, wires clicked. The old door hissed open. Inside, 6 LER sat against the walls, their bodies thin. Their eyes wide with shock as they saw Leia. One of them stood, voice shaking. Elia, is it really you? Leia stepped forward, tears in her eyes. I found you. I came back. The room filled with soft gasps. One by one, they stood and touched her hand, her shoulder, her face, needing to know it was real. Raylan watched quietly. His heart felt full. But the moment broke when an alarm rang out. They had been seen. Come on, Raylan shouted. He led them through the colony halls as guards closed in. Elia, despite her exhaustion, turned to face a closing door. Her eyes glowed faintly. A wave of pressure filled the air. The door controls burst, locking behind them. Raylan looked at her. It was new. She nodded. I'm not afraid anymore. They reached the ship. Raylan helped the Elyari inside. As the last one boarded, gunfire echoed across the canyon. A drone patrol had found them. Raylan rushed to the pilot seat.
Hold on.
The ship lifted sharply. Laser blasts flew past them, but none hit. Inside, Elia sat with her people. They were weak, but together. Safe, free. Raylan smiled and opened a channel to Araya's station. We got them, Araya's calm voice replied. Then your journey is complete. Elia shook her head gently. No, it's just beginning. Back at Kavarisark, the Elyari were given care, food, and shelter. The station glowed brighter now. Life had returned to its halls. Elia stood in the great chamber with Raylan and Araya. More of us are still out there, Elia said. We'll find them. Araya placed a hand on her shoulder. You are the voice they tried to silence, but you spoke anyway. Raylan nodded. They called you dangerous because they were afraid of what you could make others feel. Truth, peace, connection. Elia looked at both of them. Her voice was steady. I was chained. I was put on display. But one human heard me. And now, I speak for all who cannot. She stepped forward, placed her hand on a glowing orb, and a signal spread across Space Knot. Loud, not sharp, but gentle. A message. To those who are lost, I am Elia of the Elyari. I am free. And I will not stop until you are too. Sometime later, as Raylan walked through the station's quiet halls, he found Elia standing by a large window staring into the stars. You're not sleeping? He asked. She shook her head. Too many thoughts. Stood beside her. You still don't know where your home is, do you? She turned to him. My world is gone, but home. Someone who stays when no one else will. Raylan smiled. Softly. Then you're not alone anymore. She reached out and gently held his hand. Together they looked into the stars, not as lost souls, but as a voice and a light that refused to fade. The stars stretched endlessly ahead as Raylan's ship drifted quietly toward its destination. The atmosphere inside the small vessel was calm, but tense. Neither Raylan nor Elia had spoken for a while. The last battle had taken much from both, of them Elia's energy and Raylan's peace of mind. Finally, he broke the silence. We're approaching Kavarisark. Leia looked up slowly. Her strength had returned little by little during the journey. Her mind was more focused now, her presence sharper. She closed her eyes and reached out with her thoughts. I can feel her, she said softly. Araya is there. Raylan stared at the station ahead. It got thwarted in space like a giant steel ring, barely lit, old and forgotten by most of the galaxy. Half of it looked broken, the other half active with faint blue lights. It didn't look like a place where someone important would be hiding, but maybe that was the point. He brought the ship closer to one of the hangar ports. A communication signal pinged him, asking for identification. Raylan sent back a code he had found in an old shipyard database. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The hangar doors creaked open. The ship landed softly inside the station. Steam hissed from vents, and old machines buzzed to life. Everything felt quiet, abandoned, but not dead. Raylan looked at Alaya. Ready? She stood, wrapping a simple cloak around herself. Yes, she's waiting. They stepped out onto the cold metal floor of the hangar. Lights flickered above them. Dust floated through the air, but the place wasn't empty. A tall woman stood near the entrance of the main corridor. Her skin was light bronze, her hair long and tied behind her back. She wore robes, not armor. Her eyes were calm but powerful. "Elia," she said with a small nod. "You are alive." Elia walked forward and stopped a few feet from her. "Araya, you remember me?" "Of course I do," Araya replied. "I made a promise." Raylan stepped beside Elia. "We came for help." Araya studied him. "A human." Elia nodded. "He freed me. He's the reason I'm standing here." Araya looked at Raylan for a moment longer, then nodded. "Then come, both of you." Inside the station, they walked through long halls filled with old books, data scrolls, and glowing memory orbs. The walls were lined with ancient symbols from many languages some Raylan had never seen before. "This place is a library?" he asked. Araya smiled. "A sanctuary. This station holds records of species that no longer exist, of knowledge erased by fear and war. I kept it alive when others stopped caring." Raylan glanced at Alaya. "Is that why you brought us here?" Alaya answered. She remembers what others chose to forget. They entered a round room filled with light. Raya walked to a large console and placed her hand on it. A soft hum filled the air. Then a 3D projection appeared in the center of the room. Showed the planet Silurian, Alaya's homeworld. But it looked broken. Fires burned across forests. Cities were empty ruins. Raylan's heart sank. Araya spoke gently. "Silurian was attacked 20 years ago. Your people scattered across the stars. Many were captured, some vanished, a few escaped."
Elias.
Voice filled the room. "Do you know where they are now?" Aya tapped the console again. "I tracked some of them. A group of Elyari was taken to a research colony near the Uran Divide. Another escaped to the deep asteroid fields of Sector 11X. Their signals were weak, barely a whisper, but they still exist." Tears filled Alaya's eyes. For the first time since she escaped, there was real hope. Raylan asked, "Can you show us the way?" Araya nodded. "I will give you what I have, but be careful. Those who hurt Alaya won't stop. They're watching every communication. Moving forward won't be easy." Alaya stepped forward. "I don't want to hide anymore." Raylan looked at her. "Then we'll go together." Araya smiled. "Your bond is strong. That may be your greatest strength." She handed Raylan a small orb filled with starlight. "This has the last known locations of the Elyari. Guard it well." As they turned to leave, Araya placed a hand on Alaya's shoulder. "You are more than your past. You are the memory of your people, but also the light of what can be. Don't let pain shape who you become." Alaya nodded slowly. "I won't." Back on the ship, Raylan placed the orb into the navigation system. A soft glow appeared, marking 2 possible routes, one toward the research colony, the other into the wild asteroid fields. He looked at Alaya. "Where should we go first?" She closed her eyes. After a moment, she opened them. "The colony. If our people are held there, we need to help them." Raylan tapped the controls. "Then that's our next stop." As the ship lifted off, Alaya stood beside him, her gaze steady. "I was chained, I was silenced, but now I will rise." Smiled. "And I'll be right beside you." Together they flew into the stars toward danger, yes, but also toward hope.